Hello, everybody, and welcome to the House Salt live show for August. We are in time. I always have to make sure. And this month, we read The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. I almost said R.F. Kuang. I had 1 month. N.K. Jemisin. Hello, my name is Marines. My channel is My Name is Marines. And I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars, I think. Yes.
We'll see by the end. Hi, I'm Sam from Thoughts on Tomes. I gave this, between 3 and 3.5, but I'm willing to lower it depending on the conversation.
No, I'm willing to lower it.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige, and I gave this, I think, a 3, but I'm leaning toward 2.5 right now because I truly have held on to nothing about this, even though I read it today.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Connor. My channel's just Connor O'Brien. I just finished this today as well, and I liked it more than everyone else, I think. So I ended up giving this 4 tentatively. I guess we'll see how this goes.
I'm Jordan from the Jordan Journals. I also read the whole book today, and I liked it. It was easy to read.
Okay. Yeah, 3.4 is kind of like where I was feeling for a lot of it. I have a feeling I'm getting ahead of myself because we have questions prepared. I have a feeling that if I were just reading this, we had a month to read it. I understand that I'm saying
we all read it today.
I binged it, but I have a feeling if I had read it slower at my own pace, I would have enjoyed it more. This was not something really that I should have binged because, like Paige, I just didn't hold on to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get
counter argument. I always am the one that reads it before everybody else. Yeah. So I read it. Let me actually check my spreadsheet for exactly how many days it took me. 9 days. I read it over 9 days, and I read it 10 days ago. Mm-hmm. And I have the exact same, I can't remember anything. I can't remember the names. So I don't think it's the time. I think it's the book.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Let's back up here and talk about if you have read anything else by Jemisin, just kind of history with Jemisin as an author.
I've read, I started with the Broken Earth trilogy, which is obviously her most famous and most awarded. So she won a Hugo for every single book in that series and loved it. It was my favorite. I have since read the Dreamblood duology. That was fun. It was doing something different. That's okay. And then this is now my third series, and I have plans to read The City We Became as well after we finish this, or after I finish this trilogy. So it's been interesting to kind of see her evolution of writing backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't read anything else by her. I started reading the 5th season, and then I was like, this is too brain on. It was the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, I just am not, my brain wants fluffy, easy to read things. And for me, this was too much world building in a sense. And I feel like that's where my 2.5 is going to come in probably.
Yeah, I had the same experience with the 5th season. I started it when I was in college still, when I was back in college and during finals. And I was like, I can't, no, too much brain. I did it months later, and I was able to finish, and I loved it. But I suck at finishing series, so I never have finished that series. Also, because I have a feeling it's going to destroy me emotionally, and I am ready for that. Great, good to know. I started The City We Became. It isn't a DNF for me, but I also have it, I've been halfway through for a year. It is a very good book, skill wise. And I this is something about this book also that I will say, there's skill here. But with The City We Became, it's a big allegory, but it's in a way that is so in your face that I was finding it kind of unenjoyable. And a large portion of it is just based on love of New York City, which I hate New York City. I will eventually go and finish it off, but that is a case of it's not for me and not necessarily the book. But that's all I've read by her.
I'm the same with Sam, I believe. I've read the Broken Earth trilogy completely. We had to read it for the BookTube SFF Awards years ago, so that's why I binged the first 2 books and then picked up the third very quickly after. I didn't actually like the ending of the series all that much, so I was kind of we'll see how this goes. Obviously, I liked it more than everyone else. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
I haven't read anything else by her. I bought the 5th season and have checked out the audiobooks in the library like a dozen times, but I always have like the idea that it's too brain heavy, so I've never actually tried to read it.
It is.
It's big brain, yeah. It's definitely big brain.
But this one I turned off my brain. I mean, I don't remember much of it though.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the problem.
So this one was interesting. There, like Sam said, kind of like reading in reverse and seeing like this compared to the 5th season. This one, not, I don't know. The comparison is there. You will see elements of, I think, this in the 5th season, but almost a little bit more. It's like heightened, more intricate, more world, more like timeline crossing in a way that did feel like bigger brain. This one just seeped out of my brain. So let's start characters. Oh man, that's going to be hard because there are so many. And let's start characters. Is Yena. How did you guys feel about her as a main character? She's got that two soul thing going on. She's got the goddess Anefa inside of her, and then goes full god by the end. So how did you feel about her arc and just like her personality?
I think they started her at a weird point, honestly. Like I think when I started the book, I was like, okay, we have this young woman, like coming to sort of court, and there's no attachment to her. So like when she was sort of like instantly in danger, I'm like, I don't know this girl. Like, okay. And it's like we're very thrown into it. And I felt like it was just started at a weird place because I think having even a little bit of context, like maybe right before her mom dies, and like we see her and like what she did in her like home country and things like that would have been better for me, like knowing her personality. I think it took me about maybe not quite halfway through the book before I started to kind of be like, okay, I like you. Like, it's not like I hated her. I just was like, I don't have any attachments to her. But so a lot of the things that happened didn't make sense to me because I just didn't know her. Like, I'm like, why is she like trusting these gods like immediately, basically? And having this like instant attraction again. Now we know the two soul thing. It sort of makes slightly more sense. But I just think some of those things like weren't quite done as well as I would have liked as far as like a pacing thing.
Which is interesting because the book knows that it did that, because then it's like, wait a minute, I got too ahead of myself. Let me go back and tell you about myself. So like it was a very conscious decision to start it there.
But and make this whole like unreliable narrator, like those pieces, which we'll get to when we talk about like her sort of evolution of her writing, that pieces of that unreliable narrator thing, even though it's not the same in 5th season, I can see how she evolved this like particular writing trick thing into what she did in 5th season. But that was also very like, girl, like, but I think it's intentionally annoying.
I agree with you though. I've read other books where you like just like start in the action like this, and it's hard for me to get attached to the characters or into the story because you don't know anything about anybody yet, but you're expected to care that they're all at high stakes.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lack of, I feel like I understood her like morality. I understood like the choices she would make in certain situations for sure. But it felt like there was like this hole in terms of like her emotional attachment to things, because there was that whole plot where her cousin is like, don't let her female cousin, the names I do not remember. They're gone. They're from my brain. But he was like, don't let her find out what you love because then she'll use that against you. And then she's like, oh, I love my country, like my ruling kingdom, but we never get to see any of it. So it doesn't feel like there's any real danger, even though it ends up being like taken to war and all that stuff. It felt like there was a step removed in terms of like emotional connection with like the things that she cared about in the book.
This is an absolute insult to N.K. Jemisin, and I absolutely understand that. However, I am also in the middle of reading Lightlark by Alex Aston. Okay.
No.
Stop.
Hear me out. That is a story that is about like a an island that appears every 100 years, and all of these rulers have to go and fight on this island. And we're introduced on page 1, and by like page 5, she's like on the island, and it's like, okay, we're here. And I was like, it had the same feeling. And so like the thing that I kept thinking about Lightlark, which is kind of true, hearing you guys all talk about this for this too, is that if it was like if we started like went to the Hunger Games and we started at the Hunger Games, like we didn't
like in the cornucopia.
Yeah, and we're like, wait, like you don't see her in District 12, you don't get the reaping, you don't get I volunteers tribute and all of that emotional buildup. So by the time you're at the cornucopia, you're like, damn, like this hurts. And you just skip over all of that, which happened in Lightlark. And now I'm realizing, even though I hadn't connected, just hearing you guys talk about it, it's like, yeah, we meet her and she's like, here I am writing to my death. And you're like, who are you? Yeah. And just, yeah, that kind of messes the pace of it, you know?
Yeah.
She has a really important, I say she has a really important role in her kingdom too. Isn't she like the
it's like, who the fuck is
queen or something?
The grandma? But yeah, there's like things. I was like, how are you here?
They did say she did say somebody would just be chosen to take over after her, and like just glossed over it in one sentence. But like, you were a ruling member of your kingdom, and you just left.
Right. Like, I would have liked it to start maybe like, here's my vision. She's like if she wants to do this weird like jumping thing, it's at the funeral for mom. Mom just died. She's thinking about stuff about mom and who mom was, jumps back to sort of like how she was sort of like trained a little bit with just like a little small thing. Like, it doesn't even need to be anything major, but just to give us some of that connection of like how much she does love her kingdom and whatever. And then it's sort of getting the notification that she's been like, she has to go to Jakarta, like be presented to him, whatever. And then she goes, you know, instead of it being, again, this like,
she's at the funeral. We're meeting her. The king's like sort of emissary arrives to say, you got to go to Jakarta, right?
There we go. Yes, that's
it's like the floating orb thing.
The floating orb thing. Which it was like, oh yeah, I got one of these messages when I had to find out I had to come here, and I was like, why is this the first time we're hearing of the floating orb?
Yes.
I pictured the Haunted Mansion. And I was like, this is what.
Oh my god.
The other thing about Yena that like it is not a fault of like the character necessarily. I'm not saying this like it was a bad thing, but it was like not a for me thing, is that she arrived, and I totally understood why, because again, she's like snatched from her mother's death and she's brought here, and it's clear to her that this is not going to end well for her. But she goes around for a while just like trying to figure out her mom, who her mom is, and like also getting really angry at things, like snapping and losing her temper all over the palace in a way that I was like, I don't know, it just came off a little whiny to me in a way that it wasn't super enjoyable. And I also wanted to be like, focus. And everybody was telling her, but you're about to die. Like, and she's going around the palace like, do you know my mommy? Do you know my mommy? And I'm like, come on.
Well, it also contradicts like one of the first things we learn about her is that she is able to school her face like her mother was. Yeah. And so going into the situation, you know that her mother has trained her in certain things, but she doesn't listen to any of that training when she's going about doing any of the sleuthing she's doing. She's just kind of very blunt and angry about it. So she's not as like politically savvy as the book tells us that she is.
Yes, we do get like at first everyone's like so impressed that she shows no emotion, and that lasts like a couple chapters, and everyone's she's like, even though I can school my emotions, I won't.
Calm down. Even that stuff about her trying to investigate her mom, like I get that there was obviously some inconsistencies with how her mom behaved, but even that was like, were you close to her or not? Like, what are you like? I'm very confused. Where she's like, oh yeah, we were so close, and I knew everything about her, and it's like, I do not believe, as somebody that, you know, that does psychology stuff, that your mom, if she was a totally different person, like just flipped her behavior, like stuff would have slipped. So either you weren't that close, or you were. Like, which one is it? You know, people just don't make 180s like that completely. So it was even that part was kind of confusing as far as like what her mom's character actually was.
It also played in a way though that she's like doing this investigating because her mom was different, right? In a way that the other end of this, the way that I read it was like, what's the mystery here? She changed. Like, what are we trying to figure out? In a way that I was like, what? She abandoned the palace because she fell in love and she had a kid. She's different than she was in the palace. Like, what's not adding up? We needed to dedicate so much space to investigating. Girl, she changed.
She left.
Right. Anything else about Yena?
I mean, towards the end, like when we start to realize, like, oh, she has this two soul thing. Another thing is, and this is again me not saying that like this was something I hated, but just something like again where there could have been slightly more. I wish that sort of like two soul thing was explored a little bit more than it was before. It was just like, okay, now she changes into her, and actually when she changes sort of and she becomes, I like that it's like she doesn't change into her, she becomes this like fusion of both, and you can see the very like stark personality change in how God her versus not God her, but I liked her at the end, like that stuff, like when she becomes like fully a god. I'm like, okay,
yes,
yeah, like that's cool.
Yes, yeah. Which, I mean, we'll get to this, but like reading on, I was interested, like, if to read on because I want to see more God her. I don't know if we will, and the other people can let us know in the comments because there people like have read the trilogy. How much will we get to see more of Yena being God her? Because I like that part a lot. All right, so that brings us to Nahadoth. You know, this Naha.
Yeah, let's call him Naha.
Very interested to hear thoughts because here is like Sir Darkness bad boy with the sexual tension, which I know is just like Sam and Paige bait. Jordan. So did we like Naha?
He did what he had to do. Like he wasn't like I was telling Sam this before the live that usually I'm really a sucker, like you said, for the romances, especially if there's like a darker guy character. But for this one, it just felt like kind of forced in a way because like now we know because of like the second soul situation, but because of that instant connection, I hate when people are just like instantly attracted, instantly obsessed with someone. I liked his character. I thought he was serviceable for what he did, but I didn't like invest myself in like that romance at all. I thought it was actually very funny because I laughed out loud.
Yeah. Like when things are happening, it was like,
really,
yeah. Before the rest of you got here, we were talking about how like now we're like, oh, this is why N.K. Jemisin doesn't have like romance scenes in her books as much. But she probably figured out like I'm not good at writing a sex scene, so I'm not going to do that anymore.
That was,
you know,
but it's also hard for his character because isn't it like his thing is that he changes all the time, always
right? He's like three different personalities.
Three different personalities.
I thought there was three different people in him instead of the two. Like until much later when they made it very clear that there's like daytime Naha,
human him,
with the other arm coming out of his body, and I was like, what? I felt like I missed something, but I was.
Oh, I missed that because I did not remember the other arm body thing. That was
there's like
at the end.
There's a scene where he's like transitioning from
he's transforming.
And he has another arm
like
come out
pull,
of his body.
Doesn't he like pull apart almost? Like
I just remember
that's what I envisioned.
Saying his third arm, and I was like, what? There was a line though at the very beginning where they talked about how like he had said to her, "I've been waiting for you," or like something like that. And that is a line that always instantly catches my attention, and so I was immediately interested when I heard that. But then it didn't really hold.
I know it was giving Howl's Moving Castle, so I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, oh, like I think the choice of when to reveal things. Again, I get why they waited to reveal things with the second soul kind of thing, but if I'm already kind of pissed off about the characters having insta-love, then revealing that almost it doesn't let it recover. Like I was kind of like, okay, I was annoyed for like 200 pages about why they're like instantly attracted to each other, especially her, because it's like, this is a guy that you like know could like kill you. And I get that some people are into that. However, it doesn't really vibe. I don't know. There were things, there were scenes, there were snippets that I was like, ooh, I like that. Like when he's that first scene, when he kind of like snapped out of it and then was like, I've been waiting for you and like kissed her. I was like, oh, intrigue. But yeah, overall, because he had all those different personalities, I had a hard time kind of getting attached to him, even though like it is very much giving like Death in the Maiden. A lot of people recommended this book to me because they're like, it's a Hades Persephone dynamic, and I don't agree. It's very like more Death in the Maiden-y. But yeah, I wanted more from it. My standards are really high now. It's like,
yeah, I do like that fated lovers kind of vibe that they were giving off.
I love a reincarnated.
But it wasn't enough for me.
Yeah, I think it would have been really interesting because she's the two soul whatever. But other than like the conversations snippets that are included, there's not a whole lot that. What's her name? What's the goddess's name? Anepha. Like she doesn't really contribute all that much throughout the entirety of the book.
Right. And you don't even know that
they had started to like have bleed back and forth, and she's like having memories that she didn't understand, and then that's maybe why that they were getting together so quickly. I don't know. Maybe
like memories of their romance.
Yeah,
very much so. And like I wish that it would have done that, where it's like
that would have been so good.
Fully in control, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not attracted to you," and sometimes she's like, "Wait, why am I?" Like that back and forth would have been good. But the fact that she was like always yes, I'm like, okay, so the soul only comes in around like for him, and like nothing else.
Well, and the two Naha loses time, right? Don't they? They don't know exactly what the other is doing 100% of the time. Because
which one?
Because
he was like, I didn't remember hurting the kid god.
Yeah. And then when like they have sex and go to outer space or whatever, when he wakes up, the new guy was like, "Oh,
you're not dead.
I guess you're not dead. Like, I'll clean you up." Like,
maybe he's really used to like waking up to death, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna clean this up." But then she's not dead. He's like, "Oh, look at you, you're not dead."
He didn't like know everything that was going on, so it could have been cool if she had lost time as well.
Yeah.
This is not a dynamic that I typically like, but it has worked for me like in other places. And I keep thinking again, as you guys are talking about Daughter of Smoke and Bone and the way that was like a fated mate's like soul within a person sort of thing. It worked better for me there. But I think it was because both of them didn't know what was happening. Like Akiva didn't know, Karu didn't know. It was just like they were both kind of figuring out what the dynamic was and why they were attracted. And then they both found out together. Whereas in this one, he's immediately like, "My love." And he's like, whoa.
My sister wife.
My sister and my wife.
Oh my
god. The incest.
When it first started, I was like, this is very like Olympian situation where they're all there at the same time.
Yes.
Well, because I don't know. It's been so long since I've brushed up, but it's kind of exactly how Greek myth is.
No, it is. And like the
like
thing
Nick,
is she keeps pointing to it. Like that's the thing that got me. I was like, just leave it. Like, okay, they've all came from the maelstrom, like whatever. But then she keeps being like,
my brother,
my child, and I'm like, stop saying it. Like, stop bringing it up. Like, we get it all from the same being, like gods, whatever. But when you keep using, like, she even has a line at one point where she's like, he is talking about like my sister, my love, my brother, and I'm like, stop saying it. Like, I don't point to it all the time.
Okay, the gods, whatever. It's like Greek myth. They're all coming from the same place, whatever. Yeah. But then on like the place where they are, I forget the Aramaic. Yeah. And they're all also like related. It's like, that's your cousin.
Oh my gosh.
They're all like distant cousins. Yeah.
It's like if the Greek gods settled in the Targaryen houses.
Literally. Literally.
Doesn't she have sex with like her legit second cousin or something?
I don't think that they're like, I don't know how
we do on Sky.
They're both the same level.
They are.
Yeah.
He's
both
the
the
grandson
same,
and she's the granddaughter.
But isn't he?
They're like half.
I forget.
Listen, why are we trying to justify how far apart related they are?
I know. That's the thing. Yeah.
The only difference was that his parents weren't married when they had him, and so he was like.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and he wasn't the favorite because she had the favorite mom.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, she also kissed a child twice.
She did.
Not child,
but a child that's not a child.
Yes.
I want to sleep in bed with you, but not like that. And I'm jealous that he got to taste you.
There was a line where
you're my mom.
Where he said that like she had asked if other people prefer him to be older, and he's like, no, most
he
of them
said
it's younger. And I was like,
Listen,
I almost fell over.
It's meant to make you uncomfortable in the moment, but I don't know to what end. Like, what was the point of all of this? It's just like one thing after another that I was like, why are we doing this?
Yes.
We already started here. So Sia as a character, other than like the weird dynamics, did you feel any way about him? Because I have a feeling that he's set up in a way like that is supposed to be a character that you're supposed to be like, oh, cute.
I thought he was creepy.
He was
I
agree.
Sure God.
I liked him.
I liked him.
I like him.
I liked him, but he was creepy.
He is creepy.
Yes, he was trickster god, so he was very like Loki-esque in the like I'm fucking around with shit, and I'm like, I do love a little chaos demon, and that's what you are.
Yes.
So like that was fine, but like anytime that he was doing like, and if he just acted like a kid, what I would have preferred, I think, even with like again, I think the base here is good. There's just tweaks I would have made. Like when they had the kiss thing, if she would have aged him up for that part, like have him appear as an adult, because like he is like he's an immortal being. Like don't
he does it later in the book.
He's a cat at the
like,
end.
Right, and he's a shapeshifter, so it's like, why did you choose to keep him as a little kid for that part?
Yeah.
Why? No. And like again, because none of that part was like Mari was saying. Like to what end? Like why did you have to have that? It didn't do anything. So yeah, but I liked that like he was a guy that could sort of like shapeshift. He would fuck around with things. He had like a little ball that he was always like hanging out. Like I thought I liked him in that way, but not because he was like a cute whatever, but just because he was like a chaos maker.
Yeah. I feel like he and his dad were like the most sexually assaulted beings in this land, and he like gets raped by like old men all the time. Which is like,
right. It's like, why do we have to have all the rape in fantasy?
He also mentioned that like the kid, like Naha's kids would sleep with Naha. Like that was the whole thing where when he went on that spiel, I was like, we could have left this out actually. This is not
like, again, stop referring to them as your children then. Just say that again, like the Greek gods do, like just say that they're all like
the Greek gods don't well, I guess there's niece and uncle, but they don't go for the kids.
Right. And like, and just even the fact that he was like, oh yeah, sometimes we kind of like fill in when he's lonely, and we were like,
no,
you've talked about his kids for so long.
The thing honestly is that I didn't know what I was rooting for, whether the gods to be freed or not, because I was like, maybe they're like trapped for a reason. Maybe we should have freed these guys. This is weird as F. Like, I don't think that was what it was supposed to be doing, but honestly, for a long time, I had no idea what we were supposed to be rooting for at all. I was like, everyone is bad. I hate all of this.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But there was a little bit of that, like, everyone is bad, but it's even not like a fully commitment to that, because when you have a book where you're like, everyone sucks, it does it differently than this, because again, you're sort of like, the book wasn't clear on sort of what it wanted you to like pull for necessarily.
Well, obviously not the cousins.
Besides them, the mustache twirling ones.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the cousins whose names I even wrote little notes, and I could not.
Starts with an S, right? Her name.
Yes. Samina? Did we decide?
Samina.
I think we decided Samina. Yeah.
Scamander.
And Relada, yeah.
The Relada questions are so tacked on in the story. I felt like he like appeared in the beginning. I was like, okay, this guy's gonna like do something, right? But then at the end, he shows up in a way that I was like, where the hell did you come from? I don't know. It felt very just like sprinkled in a story that had a lot going on. I didn't love it.
Yeah, I don't really know what purpose he was supposed to serve.
Yeah.
It would be different, I don't know, if they actually got along, maybe? Because then it would actually make sense that one of them was the sacrifice for the other, or whatever it is. Oh, no, she's the sacrifice. So I don't know. Yeah, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I think they just chose
her so that he wouldn't have to be the sacrifice, but it was pretty obvious that he would have been had she not been there. So
right, and even the rules around the sacrifice, I know that I'm bitching about this a lot. I think this is still a decent book, but like the rules around the sacrifice are weird too, because it's like they say how like Descartes had to kill his wife because it had to be someone you loved, and then now all of a sudden it's like, no, you don't have to care about the person. It's like,
right?
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Like the person that he cares about most in the world, and then for
Right, like,
these
it
guys,
has
it's
to
just
be
a
that.
random cousin.
It would have been so crazy had like the main character's grandmother been brought to the city, and like her love interest, the cousin or whatever, and then like whatever his name is, the guy cousin. If all three had someone brought to the city that they had thought that they had kept safe,
and they were like
Harry Potter,
surprised.
like,
it would have
sacrifice.
raised the stakes
Yeah.
so
Yes.
much more because they all knew
The
they
lake
were
scene.
gonna, yeah,
like Harry Potter and the lake scene.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
but
like
like
that,
actually
yes.
danger.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing too, is because it's like, why are you saying, like, the whole point of sort of a lot of this plot is that, like, this whole thing that Jakarta did, set off this sort of vengeance plot that eventually made her be born. So it's like, but if you didn't have to do that, then, like, why did that happen in the first place? Like, if you could have just used whoever. So and they didn't, like, she didn't explain why there was some weird loophole with this one.
And it could have been even presented as like the grandfather has made steps to try to make their process less cruel.
Right, like that was so hard, so he didn't want to.
Yeah, so like he could have tried that route, but it's not clear what's going on with that.
I don't think he did shit. I think he was just like, I'm running out of time, and I have to get this other kid
He's
here.
like, I'm about to die.
Right.
Well,
pretty much.
I liked how I think it was the main character asked him, like, did you expect my mom to just get over that you killed her mom? And he was like, well, yeah actually, yes. I thought it would be fine.
So the grandfather, Jakarta, any feelings there, particularly about like how we view him at the very beginning when it's like he brought her here basically to be killed, and then like revealed towards the end. Did you have any feelings about that?
I thought it would have been way more interesting if she actually had a shot.
Yeah.
Like if he was like a little bit manipulative and malicious and like actually pitted the cousins consistently against each other by like his own actions, he would have been more interesting, I think.
Like
he
the
felt
land
like he
hateable.
he got like dumber as the book went on.
Yes.
Like I felt like he became less like scary towards the end of the book, especially when he was like, well, that's your mom to just like get over it.
Yeah.
I felt like he was losing his scariness from in the beginning when he was like, I brought her here to be killed.
Yeah, it would have been more interesting if, like, because he said, like, he loved the mom so much and that he could have brought himself to also love her because she was, like, an extension of her mom if the mom had come back. If he had actually wanted her to be, like, the ruler, like, and that was what pitted the tension of the cousins because they had always been there and she just comes in. I feel like that would have probably been, like, a more interesting take with the family than just, like, oh, he just wanted her to die the entire time.
Well, especially in like how we're told she is actually like a warrior woman, good at court politics, schools her face, like, and she just comes in as like this and these two like fuck up cousins are like, oh damn, like, you know, like here's this person we've heard about all our lives that our grandpa obviously really loves and whatnot. Like that dynamic would have been a lot more interesting. Now we're just fixing it.
We always do. We always end up
with the 3 stars, we tend to try to fix them.
Any other characters I didn't mention that you want to talk about?
The cousin, the Tavero.
Do we need to talk about them? They slept together, and he was.
I mean, what did we feel though? Also, did you guys have trouble picturing any of these characters?
Yeah.
Like,
all I knew was that
I looked up fan art, and he's supposed to be like redheaded and blonde.
That's the only
white.
They did keep mentioning the redheads. They mentioned it a few times.
And then because they're from, like, she's mixed, right? But like, I wasn't sure if Dad was supposed to be white. It was very unclear. Like,
mom's white, dad's black.
White, dad's brown.
Yeah. She's often described as looking like a boy.
So Jakarta's white?
Yes.
Yeah, like that
and then
race of people is white.
I've seen fan art and everyone makes them all black.
People.
No, they're all described as pale and have like light hair and
that's what I thought.
I
was like, okay, we're giving Targaryen.
Well,
but then I looked up fan art and people draw them as brown.
Yeah, the grandfather has like such light eyes, it appears that he doesn't even have color in his eyes. Like they're so light blue or gray that
I will
scary
say,
looking.
This is putting so much more context to why it was a bad thing that mom ran away.
To
be with this like northern.
Yeah.
And there is a lot
Vibe.
like her about Yena's appearance too, with like her curly hair, and she looks more like mixed, and people thinking she's ugly, and
She has green eyes.
about like how ugly she is or whatnot. I will say though, I liked that, you know, that portion of it. But a thing that I had a problem with sort of reading throughout is some of the repetition, and like that, for instance, like I felt like we heard it so many times where she was like, my ugly hair, and people think I'm ugly, like over and over and over. That I was like, I got it the first time. Go ahead.
I think it was also one of those things that she kept bringing it up so that when the gods revealed kind of what they actually look like at the end, they're all black.
Yeah, like that was the thing, was like the god that they like all
worshipped and thought they were
black.
like
right.
She's like, oh, yeah. She's like, I wonder how they'll feel about that. Like that.
Yes. Where like, yeah, and like Naha's like white isn't like paper white. But yeah, I'm trying to find
the fan art.
I'll show it to you guys. Yeah, but like I saw multiple fan arts and like casting things that like had Jakarta, especially this one that's like stands out as like being a black man. I don't know if people just assumed because his other like her other series have all been with black characters. But that's why I got confused, because then I was like, okay, how am I picturing people? And then it would say someone was like pale, and I was like, how pale are we talking? Like it was like, I got confused.
But the one cousin Tavril or whatever, he is a redhead, because I think that his mixture of like whatever the sky people are and his mixed people all have like red hair basically. And so when she
I
was like
picturing like Scottish or whatever.
Irish or Scottish or something.
Or Irish,
Because at some point the main character's like, go find a woman and like maybe you'll have redheaded babies.
Yeah. So were you guys able to picture like the world, like the place where they were staying, or any of those details?
No.
I think kind of, but there wasn't a lot.
I
thought for a really long time that they were actually in the sky. And it wasn't just called sky. And so for a long time I thought we were actually like in like a cloud city. But I don't think we are.
The original cover kind of shows what the city would look like. So it's like the base of the city, and then there's like a big column that supports where all the action of the actual book is taking place.
Sure.
I found the fan cast. So see this fan cast, right? And then it has like, and then like all the way down to like this guy. So like literally everyone's black, and it has like Nahados is Idris Elba, and I was like, again, he's supposed to be like paper white. Jakarta, Jeffrey Wright, Skimina, Anya, whatever. So like, and it's a very well liked post, and I'm like, did we all not know what the descriptions of people were? So that's why I got confused.
They went full.
I usually look up fan art.
They went full. We don't care what the book says.
It's true.
And I respect.
Whatever.
I respect it, honestly.
Well,
which is fine. I was like, again, when I'm trying, and again, I saw their fan art too. That was like, okay, wait, am I picturing people wrong then?
Yeah.
I feel like
they would just
anyway.
Go
ahead.
I was going to kind of pivot from here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like part of the reason, like, not being able to picture the world or the people is part of the reason I can't hold on to the story, because I don't have any, like, memories to grasp onto in terms of, like, oh, I could picture this perfectly or picture this person. I feel like that's part of the reason.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah. I just pictured a lot of corridors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Castle-y type vibes.
Yeah.
Clouds.
Lots of circles.
Yes, lots of walking.
I was picturing Asgard kind of like in Marvel movies, like that kind of
vibe.
So I was imagining.
Yes.
I will say that one of the things that I liked about this, and I think maybe it was helped by the fact that I listened to audiobook. I liked it a lot at first, and then as the book went on, I was like, oh man, it could have been a little bit better. Was the sort of like unreliable narrator, like going back and forth. It felt very much like an oral history. And so like hearing the voice actress actually act it out and be like, wait, hold on. I got too far ahead. Like, let me go back. Like that helped the experience. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking like, maybe if I was looking at this on paper, it would annoy me. But hearing somebody actually like they were talking to me about it, like I loved it so much. Every time she was like, hold on. I gotta tell you, like it was.
I will say it was a little bit annoying. Like I got it, but there was times where I'm like, stop. When I would, stumble across like, oh wait, something big just happened, but now I have to go back and tell you about something else that connects to that.
The downside was that for like the beginning chapters, I had absolutely no idea about the passage of time. I realized that at one point I thought like months had gone by because of something she had told us, but then she goes back and she's like, that night, and I was like, we're still on the day she arrived, and that had flown over my head completely. I had absolutely no grasp in like how much time was elapsing here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Some of the characters didn't either, though.
So, yeah, true. The end. Any thoughts on how this ended?
The end was my favorite. I don't know, like I just liked her turning into a full god. Everyone gets, like, everything happens at once. It's a bunch of action. Just because it felt like so much of it was meandering that I was like, finally, we're doing something. Even just like the confrontation with the gods and like his punishment of like, now you have to go and wander about to like make up for what you did. I thought that was good. Like those things were good. And even just like, I mean, she wrapped up with a little bow, like a little bit too nicely, where it's like, okay, now the cousin who's like really well equipped to like handle stuff is going to be your new heir and whatever. And like the other two are dead. But it was still like satisfying enough.
It was a little bit comedic, I thought. There were so many things happening, and like people are dying, and like the one cousin kills the other cousin while everyone else is fighting. I could picture this in like a TV show with funny music playing in the background with all of these random people picking fights with each other, because like the two warrior goddesses start fighting, and then the two guys, and she's just sitting there in the middle while like everything is breaking down and cousins are killing cousins, and her grandfather.
Well, isn't she dead? Like she got stabbed.
That was the part I didn't like. Was that she was
like
dead
ethereal
and like
just watching. Yeah.
And then the other, like the god comes out of the other guy, which we didn't even talk about him, but he was like in love with her mom and like whatever.
It very much was giving. I bet you're wondering how I got here when there was the reveal that she had been talking and she was just there vibing the entire time.
What was the actual human in love with her mom, or was it the god in the human in love with her mom?
No, it was the human, and then the god came after and was like, I can get her back if you let me in there, and like that was the whole trick.
I did like when she became the goddess and was like kind of settling into it. They kept talking about the balance and how everything felt balanced.
Right, like you needed her.
Because she was the goddess of balance. I thought that was really cool. I liked that.
Yeah. I like her, like, her role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and there's like some like polyamory situation between the three of them.
The
siblings.
Polyamory incest that I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
We're going back to that.
If we're not related, then it would have been great, fine.
Right.
I don't know why they keep calling each other brother and sister, because they're not.
I know.
So
annoying. Like, why?
Do you think it's like,
again, them all being in love, I was like, cool, but it's like, I'm in love with my brother, and you're like, stop it.
Is it more of like an endearment term? Like they all came from the same place, so they're like the only relations that they have?
Sure.
I mean, kind of, but then the way they relate to each other, the way they relate to each other is still a sibling thing, or like even with like the younger one would be very affectionate in like a mother-son, whatever. So it's like the choices that were made.
Anyway, though, at the end, I did really like when she kills the one goddess who betrayed. Yeah, it was like, and you're dead.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you really changed like that.
Yeah.
I did like that too.
Yeah. I guess she would have done that anyway, even as a mortal, because didn't she basically do that when she visits the enemies of her people or something? Like she orders Naha to turn someone to crystal or something.
That was good. That was a good scene.
Black
I
Diamond.
don't think she was like, you can't.
She
kill
says
them.
you
Like,
can't kill them.
You can't kill them, but you still do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, where by turning, he's like, I'll turn him into a diamond. And I'm like, that's good. That's boss. Yeah.
Good.
That was good. And like even the way that like she's written at the end, where like again you can see that personality shift. Like that was just again all of the elements that I know N.K. Jemisin uses more as her writing develops. Like you see them here. Like this was a good book to then look back and see like the seeds that were planted for her writing to evolve.
Yeah. We all were kind of middling. Anybody's rating change, I'm still pretty set on like 3.5.
I'm still 3.5. I think it's like solid 3 for me. Yeah.
I don't know.
I still like it.
I might still. I don't know. It could be a 3.5, but like, I still really liked it.
No,
so.
you had a good time. Don't let us influence you.
No,
but like, I'm still gonna continue. Like, I think it'll be interesting with like because I think the next one when we're talking about the city. It follows characters that are not in Sky, so it's like in some of that support column area.
I also think that the sequels will also have an influence on how I feel about this first book and how well it did with setting up the stage. So
yeah,
I will keep reading too. I always say that I suck at finishing series, but for real, I feel like
that's why I specifically got the bind up because I want the bind up to be off my TBR shelf. So like this is book 2. I know it's so chonky.
Look at book 3.
Wow.
Yeah, book 3 is much bigger than books 1 and 2. Books 1 and 2 were 1, 2, 3.
Oh man,
2's gonna be quick.
A lot of pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jordan, what do you keep reading?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. I said I feel like I usually say yes, and then the minute that we leave the live show, if I don't start the next book like that day, it's not going to happen. So I started the second book for The First Sister like the next day after the live show, still listening to it.
Okay.
Still reading it. So like I can't start this next book tomorrow.
Yeah.
Connor, are you going to finish the trilogy?
I'll at least read the second one and see.
Okay.
But I don't know. Because I didn't really like the ending of the Broken Earth trilogy, so I'm like worried if I just don't like how N.K. Jemisin wraps up series.
Sure.
Is it only trilogy?
I probably won't continue this one just because like it was good, but it wasn't for me fully. So I think I'm more likely to try like the 5th season again. I feel like I liked her writing enough that I'm like I want to try something else and see if that's more for me.
It could also be whether or not who's being followed in the second book.
Yeah.
Like. And if we get to see the characters of this,
I don't know if you get to see them, but I think you do get to see Tempus or whatever, like doing what he needs to do to like make up for things. I think you follow a character that like runs into him. I think.
Okay.
And then so he's like human. Him is like doing stuff. So I think we get more of him.
Got it. All right. Anything we didn't cover? Any final thoughts on this book?
No.
Great.
I thought it was going to be ranked higher. I had higher hopes, but it
wasn't as hard to read as some of the other books. Like
no.
it was like
we've read far worse this year.
Yeah,
This is like.
Well, I think I was also comparing it to the books we've read.
Yeah.
Not
sure.
Books in this similar vein, not like the romance books we read, but
right.
I was like, I enjoyed this more than a lot of those other ones.
Correct.
Oh yeah, like
this is going to be high for me. So
yeah, we've read a lot of adult fantasy this year, which I don't typically read, and this was by far the easiest of all of them to read.
Yes. Speaking of, our pick for September is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've been hearing such amazing things about this. I don't think that I've seen a negative review yet. I am pretty excited about this. I also think, though, it might be like big brain time. So,
great for us all.
Guys, do not wait until the last minute for that.
You say this every time. You know who
guys,
we are.
Do not don't you want to
busy
enjoy
next
this
month.
book?
We'll see.
Oh my god!
I'm not. I'm gonna start it before the day.
I need to order it.
Yeah.
I'm excited though.
I'm gonna do a check-in in 2 weeks and be like, guys, have you?
It'll be radio silence.
And I'm still gonna be reading this.
I pretend I do not
sequel
see it.
from the last book of.
Oh, you love us.
I do, but man, you stress me out. You'll need time to dry your tears, according to Emmy in the chat.
Yeah.
Hey.
Maybe
I've heard there's also like some linguistic stuff because it's Babel. Both pronunciations are correct.
And I think she does the school setting really well. Like I read her other series, and
Poppy War.
That was my favorite section of that book.
I'm reading the third Poppy War book right now, so I'm going to be finishing the Poppy War and sobbing, and then reading that like right after.
I'm thinking though, it's going to be emotionally like taxing. It's actually better that I binge it. Like I can't do prolonged stress. The way my anxiety works, I have to like
just binge it earlier in the month though.
Okay, sure.
In case you have to put it down. You know, I don't want you guys to be all coming to the like I book like this. I feel like coming right into the live show after you finished it is not going to be good for processing. Yes, you got to have like at least 2 days before. That's your deadline. So whatever we decide, listen, whatever we decide, you have to read it by like that Friday.
You're asking a lot.
So if you need to read it over the weekend, it has to be the previous weekend. Okay?
You're asking so much.
I'll order it today.
You can do it. You can do it. Just do it.
Great. I'm glad. Yes. Figure that out. Thank you so much for joining us this month. We will see you next month, usually the last weekend of the month, but we'll let you guys know date and time and all of that. Hope you guys will be reading along with us, and or if you haven't already, and we'll see you then.